What is up, Gig Nation? Welcome back to the channel. Today is a big day. People are casting their votes, and one of those issues that they are voting on is Proposition 22. It's an initiative that was included on the ballot in California, and it's going to decide the fate of the gig economy within California and potentially nationwide, because a lot of other states are going to follow suit with AB 5 if it sticks. AB 5 makes gig economy workers full-time employees, and Proposition 22 is looking to overturn that. There is a ton of news out there from lots of different sources with regards to Proposition 22. A lot of sources are taking their stance, and some of those stances are quite opinionated and quite biased. So today, we're going to be looking at a Washington Post article that takes a pretty strong stance on Proposition 22, opposed to Prop 22. They want to see AB 5 stick. We're going to go into the sum and substance of this article, and then we're going to look at some other sources that have actually collected data from gig economy workers. I know, crazy, right? Actually collecting data and asking gig economy workers what they think before writing an article. And that way you guys can get a better idea of what exactly other gig workers are thinking about this situation. So the Washington Post article takes a pretty clear stance. Essentially what they are saying is that companies want Proposition 22 passed so that they can continue to exploit gig economy workers because it is better for their bottom line. Furthermore, they have a ton of anecdotal evidence that shows gig economy workers are being exploited by gig economy apps. Now, let me make one thing 100% clear. I do think that a lot of gig workers have been exploited by apps in the past. I do think this is a problem and something that we need to find a solution on. But I also think that the majority of gig economy workers do not think that AB 5 is the solution to these problems. And when I say I think that gig economy workers are saying this, what I mean is that I poll gig economy workers on my channel, my subscribers, and ask them if they want to remain independent contractors. 75% of them, in a poll of 300 subscribers, said that they do not want to be full-time employees. Now, you can also check other sources like the rideshare guy. The rideshare guy polled his audience, that's 80,000 subscribers, and he asked them the same thing. Do you want to remain independent contractors? 69% of them said yes. In another poll, 60% of his audience said that they support Proposition 22 and that they do not want to see AB 5 stick. They do not want to be full-time employees. And I should also further clarify that myself as a source could be seen to have a little bit of bias. I mean, I run a gig economy channel on YouTube, so clearly I am making some profit based on these gig economy videos. It's in my best interest to see the gig economy continue, but I don't see this as a life or death situation here. If the gig economy dies next week, it's not the end of the world for me. At the end of the day, I just have to create content that helps my subscribers. And from what I've seen, a lot of them do not want to work full-time for gig economy apps. So that creates a huge opportunity for me to continue to help them as they are looking for work and no longer working these gig economy jobs. When I create content for this channel, I'm not looking to necessarily persuade people to join my opinion. I'm looking at what the overall opinion is, and then I'm following that trend. That's just how the YouTube algorithm works. It does not make sense for me to go against the trend. So I did my research. I wanted to make sure that gig economy workers actually do not like Proposition 22 before taking a stance on it. Now, it's safe to say that the rideshare guy also has some sort of bias when it comes to Proposition 22. After all, he has a business that's based on rideshare and delivery drivers. He creates content. He has all other sorts of promotions, all other sorts of deals set up. So yes, there's probably some bias there. But at the end of the day, himself as well as myself actually collected data before coming up with these opinions. And if you're interested in the rideshare guy's opinion on Proposition 22, he actually does a great job of summarizing everything, including all of the data, all of the polling, and really going in detail into the topic to try and present an unbiased opinion. And that is my beef with this Washington Post article. They did not look at the data before writing this article. They clearly have incentives. They have political incentives, political ties that are tied to AB 5 and seeing that sort of initiative pass. And they likely have monetary incentives as well. I know for a fact that anytime you write an article about the gig economy taking advantage of people, it just gets a lot of reads. When I first started this YouTube channel, a lot of my videos were complaining about the gig economy. YouTube was going to reward that and they were going to get me a ton of views. But I started to feel irresponsible because I was reading through the comments that people would say on my channel after I released one of these videos, and a lot of people actually really like the gig economy, the flexibility of work, and they think that they're making a fair wage doing this kind of job. So essentially, I did not feel like it was fair for me to be doing this selfishly, to be making videos complaining about the gig economy just to get views when I would be influencing public opinion and not necessarily fairly representing the opinion of gig economy workers. My goal is to continue playing both sides of it. While I do want to give advice for gig workers to make more money, I also want to hold gig economy companies accountable. I'm usually the first one to take a look at new policies by delivery apps, rideshare apps, and uncover either their lack of transparency or the potential for them to use new policies to exploit gig economy workers. So if we circle back to this Washington Post article, we can look at all of the different anecdotal stories of gig economy workers. One of them I do find pretty interesting. It was a Lyft driver who essentially rented a Lyft car through the Lyft Express program and found themselves in a very difficult financial position. Now, this is absolutely an area where Uber and Lyft did exploit drivers. This was coming off of kind of the heydays in the gig economy and in ride sharing where you could make a ton of money driving. Now, at some point, investors started to pressure Lyft and Uber to become more profitable, and those wages started to get cut right about the same time where they started renting out vehicles to drivers. So you were selling drivers on this dream of, making a lot of money and on their own schedule, working flexibly, while at the same time cutting rates and making it more difficult for drivers to make those payments on their car. This is not cool. That's definitely a no. And when things like this come up, gig economy companies should be held accountable. But it's also not fair of the Washington Post to cherry pick anecdotal evidence that supports their opinion. And I've actually been on the receiving side of an editor preparing a story like this. It was not for the Washington Post. I believe it was NBC or some other source. And essentially they were looking to do a smear article on Amazon Flex. So one of the editors saw a video of mine right after I was deactivated by Amazon Flex, and I was, kind of pissed about the situation, and they called me up. And they asked me about Amazon Flex. They asked me what I thought about it, and then they started to kind of try and pick at reasons why I would not like Amazon Flex, why it was so hard for me to drive my own vehicle, and why I wasn't getting paid enough. And my answers to their questions were consistently like, look, I think this is a pretty decent opportunity for drivers. It is what you make it. You do have to drive a fuel-efficient vehicle. You have to be in charge of a lot of stuff, but it's a good opportunity to earn money. And to no surprise, they did not use my opinion in the article because they were looking to validate the predetermined opinion of this article before calling up anyone to actually get featured in the article. And what have we seen as a result of opinions like this against Amazon Flex? Amazon Flex is slowly disappearing. You're seeing more Amazon DSP drivers, where Amazon is outsourcing this to third-party contractors who manage delivery drivers themselves. They pay drivers about $15 an hour, and they do give them some sort of benefits. But as I know from being on this channel, from talking to gig economy workers, they would rather have a higher ceiling of earnings, which you can get with Amazon Flex. I mean, the average was, I believe it was $15 to $20 an hour, but then there was all sorts of bonuses. There was peak pay. When it was busy, the blocks would get bid up so you could make more money, and you could work whenever you wanted. So if you were studying, if you were retired, if you had a job and you needed more money, you could use this as a side hustle. That opportunity is getting harder and harder to come by because of news sources like this, because of articles like this Washington Post articles and irresponsible journalism from editors that, they want to have a shock and awe factor, but they don't actually want to look at the data. They don't want to acknowledge the fact that gig economy workers enjoy the gig economy. And that's where my beef is. How do we find out a way to protect workers to some extent, to make sure that they're not getting undercut on wages, make sure there's some sort of benefits, make sure that gig economy companies aren't deliberately taking advantage of them, but without ruining the gig economy for people that work in the gig economy. Every time I see one of these articles, the first person interviewed is from Gig Economy Rising. I respect the group. Their feelings are important and they are valid, but they are not the majority of the gig economy. It's a group of gig economy workers that a lot of them kind of just want to either want to see their way, they want to see full-time employment, fair wages, whatever, or they want to see Lyft and Uber die. Like they're that dramatic, and it is that much of an ultimatum, and I do not think that we should think like that. I think we should try and find a middle ground here. Let me know what you think on this. Leave your opinion down below, as I'd love to hear from you, and make sure to subscribe to the channel to get all of the latest gig economy news.